I bought this deal, brought a full circle, pushed the value on it, refinanced it, got my investors' investment capital back to them. And that building bought my wife's retirement. So
Wow.
this, and it was like, I'd have to say there was some challenges with it, but it was an easy win. So at this point in time, I'm thinking that I get what I, tell my students is the Midas syndrome. Okay. And the Midas syndrome is you get a few successes, you get a few wins, and then you think that everything you touch is going to turn to gold.
As an operator, I know other investors are romanticizing multifamily investing, and I'm looking to learn from other investors' mistakes. I know you are too, and you found the right place. Welcome to Myers Methods Presents Multifamily Missteps. Hey everybody, and welcome to Multifamily Missteps. I'm your host Jerome, and I've went north, and I know it's gotta be cold up there. Went and found my man Matt in Rochester, New York. How are you, brother?
Good, Jerome. It's been way too long, man. So thanks for having me on your show.
Man, I remember when I was supposed to fly up there. We were supposed to do the thing in person, and then this little bug COVID thing happened, and we had to go virtual, and it still worked out good. But it would have been good to shake hands with you and see what's going on in your town, man.
We're putting on a conference next year, so I'll definitely offer you out we're gonna fill an arena together, man.
Hey, I it's been a while since I've spoke multifamily, so I'd be really excited to come do that with you guys for sure. So,
Absolutely.
the listeners, they may not be following you on social, they may not know the journey. So, give them a little rundown on your background, Matt.
Yeah, so I've been in real estate for 16 years, and I got into real estate back in 2006 really by accident as a residential agent. And by accident, I mean I got the best job I could find out of college was as a bank teller. All right. And it was a bank teller in my old hometown. And I hated that job for a couple different things. I was standing in one place and at one place all day. And secondly, because my family was a blue collar family that was house poor in a affluent neighborhood or community, I had this like inferiority complex. And here I was, graduated college, best job I could find was as a bank teller, and then I am like servicing my colleagues, my school colleagues that were like graduated with fancy degrees from Yale and Northwestern and all that stuff. And I was embarrassed, right? So my dad offered me a job as a well, not a job because it didn't really it was 100% commission, but as a real estate agent. And that's how I got my start. And I got bit by the bug when I bought my first four-family property. My dad pushed me out of the nest a couple months after I moved in with him because it's not every parent's dream to have an adult child living with them. So I didn't like the idea of paying rent because staying at my parents' house, not paying rent was kind of cool. And so I dreaded the idea of paying rent. So I bought a four-family property with the commission checks I'd saved up. It was like $16,000. It was every single penny that I had. And I moved into one of the units, rented out the other three. And that's when like I had $1,800 in rent checks in my mailbox 2 weeks after closing. And I was like, dude, I was selling very, very cheap properties. And I knew how hard I had to work for $1,800. And this was like, it felt like a crime, right? So I decided I had to scale it. So that's kind of like my real estate origin story.
Wow. So $1,800. You didn't really do anything but market the units for rent, and then money kept coming every month. It's kind of a
Yeah.
game
Plus,
changer, right?
yeah. And I was getting all my expenses paid for, right? I was getting my mortgage, taxes, insurance, and I was making $200 a month while living there. So that was really cool. And if you would have told me that that was possible, like 6 months prior to that, I would have said like, I would have not believed it. So I had to go through the process myself.
Wow. All right. So you're hooked then. And every deal that you've done since then has worked exactly the same way, right?
No, I'm a hard-headed individual. And This show is called Multifamily Missteps, right?
It is, but I know so many operators out there do everything perfectly. So
No, I mean I've done a lot of things wrong. One thing is that I was in real estate for 13 years. After my dad passed away when I was 28 years old, he was my mentor, right? After he passed away, I lost my mentor. And I thought that everybody's dad was their mentor. And I didn't believe in getting a mentor. So I did the DIY route and had to learn everything the hard way. So I've made every single mistake in the textbook and with all the different nuances and contexts. And so I love sharing these stories because, they're the things that people need to hear because, we're connected to each other. I don't always share the highlight reels.
the highlight reels are good for social media, but that's about all they're good for. So give me some goods, man. Give me some of the skeletons, man. Talk to me. Let me know that you really do this business.
Okay. Um, so the first time I went big was, I spent my first 13 years in buying real estate, multifamily, small multifamily, with the one goal in mind of being financially free by the time I was 40 years old. And my why was pretty big. I lost both my parents in my 20s. I saw two hardworking parents that loved my brother and I to death, and they died, or they died young and didn't have time to enjoy the life. They were working all the time. My dad was always scrambling to squirrel enough money away for retirement because he kind of messed around when he was younger. My mother was a dialysis nurse, right? And she was battling, terminal cancer, working full time as a dialysis nurse while going through chemotherapy, right? She, like, I wish I could go back in time from where I am right now to help her because I couldn't imagine, like, some people, like, they get a sniffle and have a hard time going into work, right? Imagine going through chemotherapy and radiation and having to go to work to put food on your family's table. So that being said, I was able to scale, replace my income, and become financially free by the time I was 33. And by just brute force, banging my head against the wall, buying properties here and there to get up to that number. And I realized I woke up in the morning, I went to the gym, went home, ate breakfast, showered, all that stuff, and I realized I was alone in the house. My wife was at work, my friends were at work, my family was at work. So I was like, now I got to retire my wife, right? Because I want to spend time with the person that I love. I don't want to be alone, or like, what am I going to do? Am I going to day drink? Am I going to go to, the local, bingo hall, or, play bridge with a bunch of little old ladies, like in a assisted living facility? So I was like ghastly, like, I was like, I have to spend another 13 years of doing this. So anyways, I got brought a deal that was a commercial property. It was a commercial office building. It was $1 million, which was really intimidating to me. And the deal came to me by accident because it was a broker that knew I was buying properties in this area. It was intimidating to say the least. This is not the one I want to spend time on, by the way. But I bought this deal, brought a full circle, pushed the value on it, refinanced it, got my investors' investment capital back to them. And that building bought my wife's retirement. So
Wow.
this, and I'd have to say there was some challenges with it, but it was an easy win. So at this point in time, I'm thinking that I get what I tell my students is the Midas syndrome. Okay. And the Midas syndrome is, you get a few successes, you get a few wins, and then you think that everything you touch is going to turn to gold. Not the
Absolutely.
case. So the next deal was, this was my baby daughters and future kids college education property, right? So I found a 24 unit mixed use property, and it had 24 residential units and two commercial storefronts. And this building was like a wreck. There was, like, when I walked through, there was some lady that was passed out in the hallway with a needle sticking out of her arm. This property was 2 blocks away from my house. So I had this, like, emotional thing to it. I was like, this thing is 2 blocks away from my house. Like, I need to, like, it's not in a great neighborhood. My neighborhood's like sort of like, it was kind of, it's in a great neighborhood, but the one right next over to it is like not so great, with a little sketchiness factor to it. So I thought I was going to come in and be the hero and change this corner through doing this project. So that's the kind of the start of that deal. And yeah, I'll stop right there.
So it sounds like you're going down the path of telling me that you can't change the neighborhood unless you buy the whole thing and shut it all down. But if you've got adjacent landlords who aren't on the same page as you, it could be an uphill battle, brother.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so this deal was $775,000. It was the mixed use building on the corner of two main streets, and then there was a four-family property in a different tax parcel was right behind it. I, using my Midas syndrome here, I was like the king of creative finance. So what I did, I was like, aha, this mixed use building here, the larger deal, I know I could get it to appraise for 775 or more. So what we did is we made the contract that was, we're buying this building for 775, and a contingency of the contract is that the four family behind it is we're going to get it for $1, contingent upon the sale and transfer title of the big building, right? And so I was like, all right, well, I know I can get $180,000 to purchase the four family that's right next to it. And then I'm going to use that four family as my down payment on the big property. Um, and that was great. Everything leading up to that point was just like awesome. And I thought I was a genius and all this stuff. And I was going to save the corner and save the neighborhood and all that.
The knowledge, deal flow, experience, and capital to be successful. They often try to overcome these challenges out of order, slowing or eliminating their ability to get the next deal done. We have developed a framework that allows them to gain the knowledge they need to find profitable deals. When they use our system, they create time and location freedom, as well as the generational wealth they desire for their family. The Multifamily Kickstart program has proven to be the fastest way to establish credibility and build a profitable apartment portfolio. Hop over to DrouinMyers.co to find out more info. So, did you do the deal?
Yeah. Yeah. I did the deal. We closed. I walked through the units and I was like, how am I going to rehab this thing? I had drug dealers. I had people that were I had a convicted pedophile that was living in one of the units, and just a lot of other people that were kind of like down in their luck, right? So I was like, all right, I have to get these people out, and then I have to go through and renovate all these units. And I didn't know how I was going to renovate those units. I did raise $250,000 in a promissory note from some of my investors to renovate the units, but I didn't know how I was going to get it done. I like brought contractors through. The project was too big. They're like, this is just too they didn't get the warm and fuzzies walking through the building and that sort of thing. So it put me in a moment of weakness. I called somebody that I have like an arm's length relationships with, but I always kept the arm's length. It's sort of one of those things, like you get two people that are sort of like water and oil. You ever met somebody that for whatever reason, like you just feel gross when you're around them?
Yeah.
So they had a construction company, and I brought them in because I was in my like moment of weakness in terms of like just mental stress of like how I'm going to pull this thing off, right? And he was like my salvation, my Lord and Savior, right? So like, you got 250,000. This is going to be more like a 300,000 and change. So what I'll do is this: you give me 19% equity in the deal. I will fund you pay me all of my receipts up to 250,000, because that's the capital you have, right? And then I will sweat the rest of it until the project is done. And then when you refinance it, then you pay me back at that point in time. Okay. Which it on
And I get
paper,
to keep 19% of the deal.
Yeah, yeah. Which it sounds, I mean, I was okay with that. I was perfectly okay with that because I thought it was going to be like, all right, this renovation thing. I hate renovations. It's just not my thing. Um and it was a on paper, I was more than happy to do that deal. The thing was is that I knew that he just wasn't the right fit for it. And we weren't the right fit for each other. And so, of course, the project went way over budget. He burned through that $250,000 like it was nothing, right?
Hmm.
And then when it came to the point of him having to put his own money into it, the project stopped.
Of course it did.
I didn't have like a vesting schedule into that membership interest, right? So it wasn't like, okay, you can get that 19% once the project is finished, right? No, we just modified the operating agreement and brought him on there because it was foolish of me to not do that. But I was inexperienced. I didn't have a somebody looking over my shoulder. I didn't have a mentor to talk to. And so I did that. And so then I started calling him. I was like, dude, what's going on with this project? Like, it's like everything, we had some tenants living in like some of these units, and it was just like it was a disaster. There's tools left out all over the place. And so it's like, oh, I got tied up with some other projects. And, by the way, I should have, I thought that you were going to be leasing some of these, some like pre-leasing some of these units. So I didn't know that, I'm like, dude, I can't pre-lease a construction zone like this. Like, so I was like, you got to come back. We need to bring this thing full circle. So it was this constant like fighting and tugging and that sort of thing. Um, Long story short, we got the project completed, like probably about like 98% complete. Of course, the 2% is always the hardest when you're dealing with a contractor. And so went for my refinance. This guy was like bugging me like every week. Hey, did the refinance close? I was like, listen, fool, we just got our application in. Okay. And so this is what it was like. I felt like I was getting harassed because he wanted his money, right?
Of course you
Um,
did.
and so what happened is we end up getting it, refinanced, right? Thankfully, I had enough. So now comes to his. I need my money, plus I want. We came to like a head in terms of like, all right, this isn't working out, right? Let's just do this sort of thing. So he's like, buy me out, and so by the grace of God, right, we brought this thing full circle, got the valuation. We pushed the valuation from 775 to 1.5 million. Okay.
Nice.
So we got the valuation there, and like by the grace of God, we got, the money out to buy him out at closing, minus about 40,000 bucks was what was left over. The people that lent me the $250,000, that as a promissory note, I was like, listen, I can get you most of your money, but I gotta, we gotta leave about 40 grand into the deal until I figure something out. So I was able to take some cash from that, pay that down pretty quickly. And then this isn't the end of the story, right? So these units were beautiful. Okay. We had, new kitchens, new bathrooms, that sort of thing. And we put them out for lease, right? And it was hard as hell to lease this thing up. Um, and because the property, I found that with these distressed deals, it takes like maybe a year or two for the stank to get off of them, right? Everybody is like, those units are beautiful, but that building is like got a bad juju kind of
I
thing to it.
remember when I remember when is what you
Mm-hmm.
get.
Yeah. So then we, first round of lease up, like we, of course we had to make, tons of, we had to keep adjusting our credit score down and down and down, and the income requirements down and down and down.
You get the
So
same thing again.
yeah, so we got at least, leased up. Thankfully, like, fast forward 3 years from now, we've, and we had to like push people out. We had tenants that went in there that were dealing drugs out of there because it was on the corner, right? It was super convenient for them to have people pull up, and they do their things right out of the window. But yeah, no, it was full circle 3 years. 3 years later, it's like I'd say it's an okay to good project. I wouldn't do it again. The biggest mistake I made on this whole thing was right in the beginning, is that I got the hero sort of complex, and also the Midas syndrome on this. And I was not doing it based upon logical reasoning in terms of sticking to my guns and all the principles that had made me successful, right? And it's like I couldn't, I couldn't change the dynamic of that neighborhood. So that's it. Did I give enough detail on the horror stories of
For
that stuff?
sure. For sure. I felt like I was there walking through the halls. I've done some deals like that, man. So yeah. But for the person who is like, man, we're gonna get this thing and we're gonna push rent. The only way you can get those big value gains is if you buy the stuff that's really challenging. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only way you can grow the NOI and then the valuation. And so people got to know what they're getting into, and they got to know that the cash flow isn't going to be what it's supposed to be in the first year, and they got to know the second year is probably not going to be as great as you thought it was, and you got to know you're probably going to renovate stuff again because the people you put in the first year aren't really the people that are going to take care of it. And so when you start stacking that stuff up, it shows you really cut your teeth, man. I feel good, man. I'm almost getting some goosebumps over here because I know you've really been in the trenches. And that's what this show's about, man. Operators coming on and talking about the things that they learn in the war story so that other people don't go down that same path and be surprised. If you could have heard yourself today before you bought that deal 4 years ago, you would have not done it, or you would have been prepared for what happened, and you would have rethought that partnership and found another way through. So, man, this
Mm-hmm.
was awesome, man. Thanks for jumping on with us and sharing the story.
Yeah, absolutely. Always happy to.
Yeah, man. And to the listeners, the pack is with you. We'll talk soon. You made it to this juncture, so you really love what we shared on this episode of Myers Methods Presents Multifamily Missteps. Do us a favor, give us a 5-star rating, give us a review, and share this with somebody who's interested in multifamily investing. Until the next time, the pack is with you.